Good afternoon and welcome to the Bookham Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is a special episode of Creators Talk Podcast, a podcast for book conversations with your favorite bookish content creators. This episode is brought to you by Bookham, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookhamapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the wonderful Randy Winston. Winston is the creative director of the Blacklist, the fiction program that's brand new. We're excited to talk about it. He is a milkshake enthusiast. He's a wedding officiator. He's a champion of writers. He's from Atlanta, lives in New York. Randy, welcome to the Creative Star Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I totally forgot about the milkshakes, and I often forget about officiating, but I did quite a bit of it last year.
Yeah, I seen that. I was like, this man does a little bit of it all. And speaking of milkshakes, I did want to get into that because I watched some of the podcasts. It was really cool, like to see the concept. I always like podcasts that have different concepts and themes. It kind of helps the
Yeah,
listener stay connected to it. But as a
yeah.
creator, writer, author, artist, do you ever revisit your work, and if so, like how do you feel about older work, and how do you appreciate it or think about it?
Um, I think I think it's human nature for us to look back at things that we might have created and go, "Oh man, here are all the flaws. Here's everything that's wrong with it." Um, I try to, that is human. That's human nature. And so I let that live, but I don't beat myself up about it per se. I just really appreciate that I even had the courage to try. And so something like Milkshake Scholar was literally that was fun. That was really fun. I don't know if I would. I still struggle with if I would do it again or if I would continue it. Quite a few friends have asked for more of it, and I don't know. It's just I feel like I'm in a different place in my life. I'm writing again, and my focus has shifted a bit. But I do look back. Like even in writing, I try not to look back at some of the old drafts of stuff, and I'll do it and cringe and. But that's a part of the game. That's a part of creating. I don't dwell on it, but I definitely will look back for sure.
Yeah, it's always interesting because either, like you said, either you have that perspective where like I don't want to look back like the J. Cole, like I don't even want to look at my prom pictures. But then there's also that moment where you look back and you say, wow, I was on to something. You know what I'm saying? Even if it was because like you kind of walk all those steps and then you look back and you're like, okay, that was I had to go through that to see the whole picture. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you think about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, nothing happens in a vacuum. I think like you're doing with your what you are doing right now because of something that you were interested in 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think all of that adds up. And so like it would be silly of me to think about something I did 15, 20 years ago and just scoff at it. It's no, that's a part of my makeup. It's a part of why I am who I am creatively today. And so, there's a certain appreciation for it for sure. I try not to dwell on it too much, because if it is like one of those high moments, I might get stuck in it, right? And that's the way I feel personally. So I enjoy it while not trying to dwell on it too much. I will say these days, I'll be 39 this year, and then 40 next year. So, um, one of the things that I tend to think about, and nowadays when I do go back and look at things, it's because those things are connected to people I've lost, and so those things I do tend to sit with. Yeah.
No, that's well said. And then speaking of that, just like now, speaking of your life, lessons and things you've learned. You've been in publishing, you've been in the writing space for over a decade. What makes it just challenging and challenging to navigate this industry that writers have found themselves in?
Um, I mean, first and foremost, like people who work at publishing houses, whether they be indie press or like a big five, they have to work so damn hard. Like they just have to, and they oftentimes get that bad connotation of like, oh, gatekeeper, and it's like gatekeeper is viewed in this negative light. Um, like one, these people are human beings, agents included, and then two, they're every like there's just more writers than there are editors. There's more writers than there are agents. There's more writers than there are publicists. It's just the nature of the game, and so I think they could get some more grace for the work that they do. Obviously, writing is not easy. And it's just, I don't know, all in all, it's just all of it's really challenging. I do think the more people educate themselves about the business, um, the more even kill the possibilities. Like the more the possibility of them being even kill are. Um, it's just not easy. I think for me personally, um, it's been ebbs and flows. And, somebody might look at a headline and think, oh, you've always been doing the winning. And it's like, even in a headline, sometimes it's not winning. It's just a headline, it's just highlighting something new, but it's not a win, per se. The wins is in the work to come. So I don't know. I try my best to keep my head down. I do like, I try not to get too caught up in the hoopla. Um, and I think my friends who are very close to me know that. Um, and we'll celebrate the small wins, we'll celebrate the big wins, but it's always looking ahead to the work as well, if that makes sense.
No, that's great perspective because on one hand, you talk about, I think sometimes as readers or just creators in the space, book content creators, we look and say, oh, why didn't this book get published, or why isn't this coming out, or how did this come through? And you forget that they're on the other side. They have all of these manuscripts that they're dealing with, all of this editing that has to come through, all of everything that takes to produce a book. So it does give you that one, I said, good perspective on that because you really just appreciate what goes into putting a book on a shelf. And then from the writer's perspective, as you said, it's like there's that ebb and flows, right? You got the big game, you have the big moment where you get the signed deal or you get to put your book out in the world, but it takes all of those little steps. I heard Jalen Brown talk about this yesterday on a podcast, but he's like, small hinges open big doors, and it's like the long work that takes for a writer to see themselves and see where they have put their book out and finally get happy for all the short the successes that come with it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm still working on my debut novel. It'll be this year will be 11 years in August since I started that book. Since page one, it's been through revisions. Life has happened. I've taken time away from it. Instructors change, readers change. Like it is a process. That shit is not easy.
Not at all. So because of that, it makes sense of what the work you're doing now. Like, talk to us about how the Blacklist Fiction program came about, your role in it, and how you help our authors in that sense.
I mean, a lot of the credit has to go to Howie Sanders, who's at Anonymous Content. He's a partner there. And Franklin Leonard had built this machine that is the Blacklist. And the Blacklist, if you all you have to do is Google the Blacklist to find
Yeah.
the success stories of what he's done over 20 years. And from the survey to the platform to the website itself, there are so many success stories in the screenwriting world, the TV film world, where writers for whatever reason were sending their stuff out and no one was getting back to them, or people were overlooking it, or people didn't want to take a chance on it. But, Franklin built something that created a swell effect and folks had to pay attention. And, a lot of producers, directors, actors are better for it. A lot of what the Blacklist is built on is protecting and serving writers. Uh, I say Howie Sanders because Howie was actually the person who started putting a bug in Franklin's ear that he should take what he's doing in the book and in the TV film space and bring it to books. And to Franklin's credit, he did not want to do it. Franklin is a problem solver. Uh, Franklin knows the TV film world very well. He's an expert and like he's one of those ones in the TV film world. He has deep connections and he does right by people. Um, but he didn't know the book world, and Franklin will tell you that himself. And so when Howie first started coming to him about it, Franklin would turn it down and say, "No, not really. I don't, I know what the problems are in the TV film space. I don't want to be viewed as a savior in the book space. If I were to do it, it would be because there's a problem that needs to be solved, and I can help in solving that problem." Um, Howie persisted. Franklin ended up taking meetings that Howie set up. Some of those people are, New York Times and New York Times bestsellers. Some of those folks are some of the top publishers in the game. Some are some of the top agents in the game. Excuse me, in the game. And by the end of it, Franklin was convinced and realized that this was something that would be helpful, an added tool for people to use. I came in through a good friend of mine, Yadon Israel, alongside Julie Bearer, who also recommended me, and Lisa Lucas to Franklin. Franklin and I started meeting, and around this time, maybe this time last year, I was hired. Uh, a lot of a lot of my reservations about joining the Blacklist was one, obviously, like I was loving my job at the Center for Fiction and the impact that I had on the writers there. There's like a very rich community of writers and emerging writer fellows and writer studio members and first novel prize finalists, and it was just really fun. Writing workshop students. It was a blast. Um, and I'm also just very skeptical about anything that's not from the book world. And so I asked a lot of questions, specific to fiction writers because that's who I am and that's who I serve. And Franklin answered all those questions and really gave me the confidence I needed to trust that what we were going to do would work. And also, I recognize the impact, the potential impact. Like right now, like when I was at the Center for Fiction, it was a lot of the work that I did was locally based, like New York based.
Yeah.
With the Blacklist is any writer who has Wi-Fi and has a great project. And so in that way, the impact on the work is a lot bigger in terms of like the writers that I can like help and serve and support. And that was really exciting to me. So that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm here. I still for the folks at Center for Fiction, they know I still show up and support what they do. Me and Lighter DeBen, the executive director, we're in constant contact about ways that we can support each other. So that work never stops, like regardless of the
Great.
employer. It's about the writers.
No, I love that. I love the fact that you were talking about the authenticity too, because it's felt like watching just how you have rolled out, how control. I mean, I don't know for lack of better words, it's like the authenticity you all brought into the space from. All right, here we're gonna talk to these people. We're gonna make sure we get the right writers, get the right content creators. I've seen you work with like anybody from Tracy from the Stacks to Sarah Hildress, like all these people that we've also had on our podcast just authentic voices in the book space. I see like whenever I see that, I'm like, all right, these people they already have a good system in like you said in the movie space, but then you bring that to the book world and the possibilities are crazy because as you said, when it comes to what the Blacklist has done in the movies and film space, you bring that to a world where writers sometimes they might have a really good script, but they don't know at what level people are really going towards it, right? Because you write this and you might write your book, you might give it to a friend, you might give it to another friend, they might read it and they're like, oh, this is good. You go and take it and you try to do a query letter to an agent and to a publishing house and they're like, it's not good enough. And you're just sitting there like, how, like, what can I improve? What do I need to do? So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, if what's like kind of the typical path for publishing today, and how the Blacklist is kind of helping authors navigate that whole journey.
Yeah, And this is and for context, for anyone that's listening who's an aspiring writer, these are all things that it took me 11 years to learn. Um, So it's not something that I just like figured out overnight. Like it took me a while to learn. It took me like just being really patient and asking a lot of questions. But the traditional route is, you write something that's really good, or you write your story. You have an idea, you write the book, right? You have a full manuscript, first draft, you revise it. However, it is you approach revision. Maybe it's rewriting the whole thing without looking at it. Maybe it's rewriting the thing, one document next to the other. Maybe it's like your rewrite is opening that same document and just going through and just moving paragraphs around and typing as you go. Whatever rewriting revision is, that's what that second round is. And then you just continue to do that, hopefully, until it gets to a place where you're confident that you fine tune enough. You have readers look at it, people you trust, whether it's someone you know who loves books, somebody from your book club, somebody who you hang out with at the barbershop or at the nail salon, somebody who actually edits, or you pay some money and take a workshop online or whatever the case may be. However it is that you share. And what I often tell writers is find ways to do that for free first, right? So you writing and revising and editing and reading it out loud and reading it out loud, and then sharing it with people who you trust that will give you feedback, honest, critical feedback. And that's free, right? And then, you take them out to lunch or whatever, take them out to dinner or cook for them, like take them to a movie, take them to a show, because you're asking them to give you their time and attention and energy to get as much done as you can for free. Then you have to look around and go, okay, what else can I do? Now, if you have the resources financially to pay for a workshop, great, do it. If you're confident that you don't need that because the feedback you got from your friends was enough, great. The next step is you're going to query. So traditionally, I'm not going to say exactly how I instruct my writers to do it. I'm just going to tell you the traditional route, which is you query to an agent or agents, plural, and then somebody loves it. If no one loves it, you won't hear anything. But if someone loves it, great. And then that agent hopefully is going to work with you on getting it in shape so that it's ready to go out on submission. And then it goes out on submission. And then you meet with editors or you hear from an editor, or sometimes it's an exclusive or a preempt, whatever the case may be. And then hopefully there's a book contract that comes with it, whether it's a one book deal or a two book deal or a three book deal, whatever the case. And then hopefully after you doing your due diligence, you sign a book contract. And then the collaboration begins on the publishing side with the editor, with publicity, with marketing, etc.
Yep. And then so from there, the blacklist comes and helps navigate. And what part of that kind of?
Yeah. So listen, a lot of people will query. There is no guarantee. Agents don't have to guarantee that they will read your query. Agents are getting hit from everybody. Like their inboxes are insane. Um, and that's the business. Like that is the business. They have a lot of submissions that come into their inbox from writers who would love for them to rep their work and them. Um, And people might say, oh, it's gatekeeping. Well, it's really just time management. There's just not enough time in the day. Like, think about it. If your inbox has 1,500 submissions in it, and that's in like a month, 2 months, 4 months, right? So in 4 months, you have 1,500 submissions. That means in the next four, you're going to have 1,500 more. And then the next four, you're going to have 50. So at what point do you just like how do you manage all of that while still living your life? Like obviously you have your duties at work, but then you're a human being. There might be family, domestic stuff that's going on. And so you're trying to do the best that you can. And I'm saying all of this not as an agent, not as a publisher. I am a fiction writer. I too hope to query one day. What the blacklist is another tool that writers and industry members can use. So we're not taking away the query part of the process. Like when I talk to writers, I'll be talking to writers at a college next week. I talked to writers at a college 2 weeks ago. This is what I do. Like I go around, I talk to writers about the ins and outs. And I tell writers, query.
Yeah.
You should query, like do it. Like if you have something that you know is ready, you've taken it as far as you could take it, send it out. Like do your due diligence. Make sure you know which agents that project should be going to, and send it out. Like do everything right. Do the query letter right. Address it the way they want you to address it to them. Do every like comp titles, all of it. Sell that book. At the same time, there is another option that you can use as well. You can use the blacklist. You can create a free profile and you can list your project for free. That is not uploading the project, that's listing it for free. So what listing is in your bio, you're going to have a section where it asks, do you want to mention any of your projects? And you say yes, and you type in your title, then you type in a short description of the project, and then you tag that project with over 600 tags on the site. We give you up to 20 that you can choose, but it's over 600 to choose from. And some of those titles some of those tags are like hero's journey, good versus evil, protagonists, Christianity, sexuality, identity, and you can choose from those. And that helps industry members when they're searching for those things specifically. Your project now becomes a part of those results. So that's free. And that's for anybody that's like, I'm skeptical. I don't trust y'all all the way. I don't know how this site works. Okay. Well, you can create a free profile. And you can list your project for free. That comes at no cost to you. So while you're querying, you can do that, right? What happens is I get hit from writers in my inbox and they say, I've been querying for 9 months. No one's responding. Should I buy an evaluation on your site? Here's the thing. Full transparency, because we love transparency at the Blacklist. Hosting a project on the Blacklist website is $30 a month. The evaluation is $150. The evaluation is for the excerpt of your novel, not the full manuscript. So if you're going to use the Blacklist website and upload, you're uploading the full manuscript as one file. And then you're uploading a second file, and that's the first 90 to 100 pages of your project. So two different files.
Yeah.
You upload them. You pay your $30 a month. And that gives industry members access to look at your project. So if I read your pitch that's in your profile and I love that book, I can click and start reading your project. I can download it as an industry member. And you, as a writer, get to toggle the privacy settings. So obviously, no writers on the site can see your work, but the industry members can if you make it public. And you get to play with those settings as you see fit. You also keep the rights to that project. At no point does the blacklist own the rights to any projects on the site. Furthermore, if you get a book deal from your project being on the site, great. Congratulations. Please tell us so that we can celebrate with you. But we don't get a piece of that book deal. That's between you, your agent, the publisher, and God, and the tax man, because the tax man coming. But that's it. We're just a force amplifier. We're a two-way marketplace where writers can bring in their great work and industry members can find it. If you choose to pay for an evaluation, that $100 of that 150 goes to the reader who we hire freelance who has industry experience evaluating fiction.
So what does the feedback look like for a writer? So like they get it, like is it gives them a score, or how they know, and then what do they do with that information? Do they
Yeah.
say, well, I know you all kind of help with the publisher side, but even if no publisher picks it up from your from the blacklist side, are they like, hey, I got a 7 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 on the blacklist? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the evaluation is threefold. One is there's a written part of the evaluation. There are scores that rank from 1 to 10 on the components of the project, and then there's the overall score. The component scores are for things like prose, theme, character development, dialogue, pace, originality, creativity, things that agents and publishers are looking for. Furthermore, the overall score is not connected to the component scores. So let's say on themes, I get an 8 out of 10. And on dialogue, I get like a 5 out of 10. And on creativity, I get a 6 out of 10. That doesn't mean that my score is going to weigh out of the way overall. The overall score comes from the spirit of the original survey of the blacklist, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, as a reader, how likely are you to take that project and give it to your boss? How likely are you to take that project and run around and say, y'all got to read this? This is amazing. How likely are you on a scale of 1 to 10 to, like, if you yourself could acquire that book, how likely are you to say, "Hey, boss man, I'm acquiring this book. This is the real deal." On a scale of 1 to 10, the excitement level of it, because the way that the blacklist has worked all these years for 20 years is we've created a swell effect for things that get overlooked. So it's not just one person saying that project is good. It's another person, then another person, then another person. And now everybody else is going, well, if everyone else is saying it's good, then I might need to take a look at that too. It doesn't mean that it's going to change my mind, but it definitely means that I need to give that a second look. And then the written part of the evaluation are three sections: the project's, the excerpt's greatest strengths, the excerpt's greatest weaknesses, and the industry prospects of that project. What that means is, if you are a writer who pays for an evaluation, we are guaranteeing you that all three of those things, overall score, component scores, written, you are going to get feedback on. We cannot guarantee you that you will get visibility on your project. It is definitely a possibility on that site. But what we are guaranteeing you is, no matter what, you are paying for an evaluation and you're going to get an evaluation. On the industry prospects, it does not matter if you score a 4 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. That reader is obligated to give you the industry prospects on your book. So that means, regardless of what's said in the weaknesses section, that reader is still going to tell you about, from an industry side, here's some comp titles you need to think about. Here are some writers who write in a similar style. Here's some publishers that might be interested in a book like this. Here's some awards and some fellowships that this person should be thinking about. That is gold. Because when you query, there's no guarantee that someone's even going to reach back out and say, "Hey, I'm looking at this now." There's no guarantee. And so my advice is always weigh all your options, think about where you are financially, and make the decision that is going to serve you best.
Yeah, so say I get like you said, I get the high score. What's like
Mhm.
the pathway for me? Because I know maybe do I want to go traditional now, or do you all help
Yeah.
thing right there? Because I know there's some authors that's like, hey, if I got such a high score on the
hmm
blacklist, maybe I should
hmm
go to either a hybrid or self-publish this. And
hmm
what do you think about there?
So the one thing that we're not going to do is, we're not, like, we don't, how can I put this? If you get, let's say you get an 8 or a 9 or a 10, anything 8 or higher, you get an additional free month of hosting and you get 2 free evaluations. If either of those evaluations come back 8 or higher, you get another free month of hosting and 2 more free evaluations. If either of those come back 8 or higher, same thing. We go all the way to 5. Once you get to 5, 8, 8 or higher, then we're like, listen, we get it. You have a dope manuscript. You can host your project on this site for as long as you want for free, but you will not get any more free evaluations. Like, you got 5 8s. We put a gold medallion on those projects when they get multiple 8s like that. And what that does is that raises the visibility even further for industry members who are on the site. And for what it's worth, the the folks that writers are querying, most of them are on the site. I can't talk about that publicly, like who specifically,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that a lot of the people that are receiving your queries, they're on the site now. Same thing on the publishing side, they're on the site. Um, It is the site works like a grocery store. It is very much instead of people being hounded in their inbox, and well, in addition to people being hounded in their inbox, they can also decide, you know what, I'm going to go to this storytelling grocery store, and I'm going to look for this novel about a Peruvian woman who became a spy and moved to California and plays soccer. And like you can do that search and look for that project. Um, the other thing that we do is regardless of your score, if you have an evaluation on the Blacklist website, you get to opt into any of the opportunities we have for fiction writers for free. For free. So you don't pay for anything else. So whether you got a two, a five, a nine, it does not matter. You can opt into any of those opportunities for free. So some of those opportunities include the Unpublished Novel Award, which is a grant of $10,000 that will go to one writer in seven categories of fiction. You can opt into the Genre Films Partnership, which is by Simon Kinberg, who's most notable for The Martian.
Okay.
That's a 18-month, 25K TV film option. So you can opt in to be considered for that. You can be opt into consideration for the TV option with Onyx Collective, which is a subsidiary of Disney. And then we have two more that are being announced next month, which we're really excited about. So you can opt into those as well. The idea being you've paid for the evaluation. We're not in the business of making you pay for more things. You know how sometimes you get runner up in a contest and you're like, oh, so and so said this is great. Let me go pay for another contest. And then let me go pay for another contest. We're not doing that at the Blacklist. It's simply thank you. You paid for your evaluation. You got feedback. Hopefully that feedback is helpful as you start to revise your project even more. Here are some opportunities that you should be thinking about. They're free
Yeah.
to be considered. We don't do because all of the industry members are on the site. The other thing that we do is we send out newsletters. So whenever there's a project that gets a high score on a Monday, we send out all the projects from the past week that our readers were really loving, and we amp those up. On the TV film side, because the Blacklist has been around for 20 years, writers often will go, "Hey, my project got a nine. Can you look at it?" And so over time, we expect that writers will begin to do that too as the Blacklist fiction becomes more familiar in the book space. I'm sorry, I just talked for a very long time.
No, you're good. 'Cause I was gonna say that. I think there is obviously a symbiotic relationship where it's like if I got like you said, 7, 8, 9, I'm about to get. I might, one of the industry people are picking it up. I might also be like, hey, how do I get my film and TV rights kind of sought out after as well? Because now I know this story, if done correctly on this level and that level, could become, a movie or a film. So I think that was you had given us enough right there. I kind of want to talk a little bit about like there's been a lot of genre mixing lately. Like you got romantasy, you got hockey lit. There's like a lot of these genres that are mixing, and you don't have to go into all the details, but I'm just curious, like what have you seen just from like the stories that are coming to you all about where the fiction space has evolved and where you think it's going in that sense.
I mean, there's definitely genre bending being submitted. There's romantasy being submitted. There's, like from all corners, historical YA, um, women's fiction with a fantasy touch to it. Like it's coming from everywhere. And, some of that is because these writers have worked so hard on their stuff. They sent it out and they haven't heard anything. And so they're looking at other options. And that's what we're here for. We're here to be another option for you in that ecosystem of decisions. So yeah, we're seeing everything and I'm really excited about that. Also just writers from all corners and walks of life. Writers are allowed to include accomplishments and things that they've done, personal interests. They also can include professional experience. So if somebody was like a gardener or somebody was a scientist, like you can include that stuff too. Because sometimes agents are really interested in that as well.
Yeah, there's been like I seen in the L magazine with a lot of these content creators that came through. They talked a little bit about the rise of indie authors. Like, does it make sense for someone that still wants to publish or self-publish their book to come through the blacklist, get a score, and then kind of move from there? Like, what do you think about for people that do want to still do self-publishing, but they want, feedback from potential
Yeah.
industry?
Any because a self-published author retains the rights to their work, they can also host and get feedback. The only people that cannot upload to the site are people who have manuscripts that they don't own the rights to. So if, for instance, you had a manuscript with the big five, one of the big five, you can't and you sign a contract, you better not put that on the site because we don't, hey, we not trying to get in trouble, and I don't want you getting in trouble. So and so we tell writers that do not put that up on the site. But because self-published authors retain the rights to their work, absolutely you can get feedback, and you can also participate in some of those opportunities, like the Unpublished Novel Award. No, but Simon Kinberg genre films, yes. Onyx Collective, yes.
Yeah. So like let's flash forward like 5, 10 years. Like what does success kind of look like if you're like, all right, we did our best. Like what does success look like for the blacklist and helping on the fiction side for writers?
You know, I think I think sometimes people can get ahead of themselves in thinking that the flashy stuff is the success. So the book deals, writers finding agents, those things are going to be great. I promise you. Those things are going to be incredible when they happen. Oh my God. I'm looking at projects on the site now that I'm scratching my head why no one has found them yet. And when those moments come, it will be so exciting. But for me, what success looks like is when the blacklist is now a part of a writer's ecosystem of decisions, the options available to them. So right now, when a writer wants, like, I've sat down with my work, but I want more now.
Yep.
What are my options? Residency, fellowships, contests, MFA, query. I want the blacklist fiction to be a part of that ecosystem of options that a writer can choose from. And that's not going to happen overnight. That is earned. That means we have to create goodwill, we have to show proof of concept, and we have to continue to do that consistently over and over and over. So, and like that's what success looks like to me when writers are at a conference and they're like, "Oh yeah, I submitted to I don't know, like Brooklyn College MFA. I also got some feedback from the blacklist." It's like, oh, so and so's using the blacklist. When a published author is like, "Yo, I worked on my second book and I sent it under a pseudonym to get feedback from the blacklist just to see if what they thought about it." That's when I feel like we're really breaking through.
Yeah, I love to hear, and I appreciate what you all are doing. I want to switch over to you as a writer. What's like some core skills you wish you had developed as a writer, or which ones are you still developing in your early stage as a writer?
Uh, I mean, as far as what I'm still developing, the answer is all of it. I mean, I think a wish list, something that took me a long time to get into is like, and this is like maybe 11, 12 years ago, was the interiority of characters. And just how important that is to a story. Like I understood it as a reader, but as a writer, I think sometimes we get in our own way. And that is something that I very much appreciate and understand now. I think voice has a lot to do with that too. But in terms of like what I'm working on is all of it, all of it.
That's good to hear. How do you develop voice, or how do you think about voice as a writer?
A narrator. I think about narrator, and a very good friend of mine taught me that a lot of the time the question to be asked is who is the narrator talking to, and that's really important. So that really helps. It also helps to think about who am I writing for, who am I writing to as a writer, um, and that definitely helps with voice as well.
I love that. What do you know for sure about writing?
It's hard. Is very hard. It's not nothing comes easy. It's repetitive. Like you just have to keep at it. And sometimes I don't keep at it. Sometimes I'm in a groove and I'm just going for months and months and months and that turns into years. And then there's gaps. Like right after MFA, I took two years off where I wasn't writing the way I was writing before. Um, so yeah, it's not easy. It's hard. It's just like running. It's just like lifting weights. It's just like any profession, really. If you want to be good at it, you have to really commit life like to it for life. And I think for writing with me, um, like I'm on book one and it's 11 years. It's possible I get to the end of this journey and no one wants that book. And so how committed am I to writing that I can then go, okay, let's do another one. How committed am I to it? I think that's a reality too. I think sometimes folks will get so caught up in like, oh, I gotta get this book deal. And it's like, it's possible no one wants it.
Yeah.
Can you bounce on to the next one?
No, that's real. And what's your like writing process, or like if you were like, all right, what does a perfect day of writing look like for you?
In the morning, in the morning, 6 to like 12, being done by 1 at the latest is usually good for me. I'll do the long commute, an hour to get to where I need to go. I won't say where because I don't want people flocking there. But I usually will commute an hour on the weekends to go write and write for like 4 or 5 hours and give myself incentives like food and ice cream.
You have to, as a writer, you're like, all right, I'm gonna wake up in the morning. If I sit down in this chair and commit to it, I'm getting some type of treat. And
Yeah.
then like you said, it has to be for me at least. I enjoy quiet time, so it has to be in the morning or at least at night when when there's no distractions, nothing. So yeah, I agree with you on that. In your opinion, what makes a great fiction story?
People, I deeply believe, and this is something I learned from friends of mine who are editors. It's something I learned from author friends who write very important characters and narratives. People are what make fiction. The people.
Perfect. Well, let's get into your reading preference a little bit. Well, what do you like? What's the last book you read? What are you currently reading? And what do you plan to read next?
Um, Last book I read, I actually put some here. The last book I finished was Patrick Rothfuss's The Narrow Road Between Desires. Um, I will read anything. My heart is in science fiction fantasy, but I did an MFA, so I had to read a lot of literary books, and now that's a part of like my repertoire as well. I will read anything though. I love poetry. I got quite a few poetry collections. Wait, what was the second part of that?
So, what are you currently reading now? Yep.
So currently reading The Wickedest
Okay.
by Caleb Femi. Do you know about this?
I'm not familiar.
It's it's about parties in South London. It's a collection.
Okay.
It's really good. And it's also just it's experimental, and I love stuff like that from time to time. So from FSG, Jackson Howard, shout out to Jackson. And then what I'm about to dive into is the homie
Okay.
and open contempt. We're actually doing an event at the new school. I'll be in conversation with Irvin. And so for the next couple of weeks, I'll be like up to my neck in that, which I'm really excited about.
That was very cool. I was talking to him yesterday. I think we're gonna do something as well. So I'm glad to
So
hear that. As far as your reading preferences, are you all physical novels or books, or do you audiobook, ebook? Where do you think about that?
it depends. In terms of work, I read a lot of the projects that come in through the blacklist. Um, Even though I can't talk about them like in detail publicly. So those I prefer ebook instead of printed. So iPad or something. Or on the computer if I'm just sitting in front of my desk all day here. But I do prefer physical
Okay.
because I like to write in the margins. I think I was talking to Victor Laval years ago. We did a talk at Mega Evers, and he saw all the scribble all over the book. And he was like, "Wait, that's your book? You did that?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, everywhere." Like, I don't know. It's something really beautiful about seeing things that authors are doing, and then making note of, all right, okay, I'm coming back to this because I need to figure out how that works and how I can do that myself. So that really gets me excited. So yeah, physical copies for sure. I need to get into audiobooks. The one audiobook I listened to years ago, I don't remember the title, but it was William Faulkner, and it was because I just couldn't get through it. It was
Yeah.
just too dense, and so I listened to it, and it worked.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Let's get into some rapid fire book questions. So, a fiction novel we should read by an indie author.
Ah, in our Mad and Furious City, I don't even. Astra House is indie, so in our Mad and Furious City, by Guy Garantine, I believe his name is.
All right.
Uh, Danny Vasquez was the editor for that book. I love that book.
No, we'll put all these underneath. What's a fiction book you wish you had written?
Ah, oh man. Um, I mean anything by Jamaica Kincaid. Shoot, God, my God, what a control of voice and sentence prose. My God, like I honestly I don't know that I even want to. I can't even dream of writing like that. What a like have you like See Now Then in particular, See Now Then by Jamaica Kincaid. That was like one of the times I realized like, oh, this is long. This is a long game. This is for life. Like you just gotta be doing this for life. Wow. Anybody who's read that book knows what I'm talking about.
Good. What's a book you always recommend to creatives or writers?
In I recommend the Craft series from Grey Wolf, The Art of, any of those books, Art of Death, Art of Love, Art of Time. Like those books are instrumental. When I was at the Center for Fiction, the last cohort of fellows that I was with, I was lucky enough to have through our ED, the publisher from Grey Wolf, gift us with some art of craft books for the fellows. So I always recommend those books. Those books are very important on a craft level. So I always recommend those to writers. I also too, I just tell writers in particular, if you write in a certain genre, read outside of it. Also read outside of the format. So if you read fiction, also read nonfiction, also read essays, memoir, autobiography, poems, poetry, collections, read experimental. You just never know what you're going to learn and when you're going to learn it. So like be a sponge, be a student always, and just always keep it curious.
That's well said. And then last on the rapid fire, a fiction book you would like to see become a movie.
Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi.
All right, sounds good. The way we end this podcast, it's a two-sided question. I mean, this, you can answer it however you like, but what would you like to see more of in the book world?
More opportunities to alleviate stress on publishers and agents so they can find the stuff that they want to make. I think a lot of writers win when the stress is alleviated. So, as I said before, there's just way more of us than there are of them. So, anything that alleviates that stress so that they can find the stuff, so that they can find us, great.
Yeah.
I
And
think the blacklist is one of those.
yeah, exactly. And then on the other side of that question, what would you like to see less of in the book world?
Competition. Um, competition. I think the scarcity mindset is real for some, and you know, there's enough readers for everybody.
It really is. It truly is. And Randy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We truly appreciate you. Let
Absolutely.
us let us know where we can find you on the internet and anywhere we can support you.
Uh, my on Instagram, I am underscore R Winston's World, and I also have a Substack. Shout out to Tuvok, that you can check out and subscribe to. Yeah, that's where I am.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Randy. Truly a pleasure talking to you, and thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.